All right. And welcome back to the Prometheus Afterthoughts podcast, the podcast where we talk to the most recent boot. And today, that is our second boot of Prometheus Season of the Elders. Mark, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am tired.
Struggled to find a time for this, haven't we?
Yes, but I will say, though, of all the times that I have played with you in games, you have been always so accommodating to other people's schedule. Like, this is at least once that I can do it, and hopefully maybe in the future as well. So yeah, this is now your time to say whatever you want, in regards to how you played, your experience in the game, your cast members, the themes, mechanics, the podcast, whatever. It's your time, and the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Oh my gosh, where shall I start? What would you like me to start with?
I guess we'll start about your experience.
Yeah, okay. So I was so excited to play this game. So I think I may have been the second most excited on the cast after Bloody, but I was really, really looking forward to it. I was a massive fan of the first season. I would message you after each episode came out and say, oh my God, this happened. And so you knew I really loved the game. So obviously going this early was massively disappointing. Because I'd prepared myself. You don't see that in the episodes, but I really had was in a really good mindset of I can really do well in this. And that did not happen. So, and I guess, I'm disappointed with myself. You know, my history in games is really strong actually, in long form games, but I've now played 2 minis and I've done pretty badly in both of them. And I know we've had a discussion about this, about whether or not I'm suited to minis. And I still agree with what Sherry said in the podcast the other day, that I don't think I'm particularly suited to minis because I think my strength is more a social game than a strategic game. And what I've found in minis so far is that social game takes second place to strategy, whereas in long form games, social takes first place. Because you have longer to do it and you have more time to develop those relationships. And I didn't really get a chance to develop any relationships with anyone because unfortunately we lost both the first 2 challenges. And I was so jealous watching the other team, having this lovely sort of reward together where they all got to bond together. And I was like, we never got to do that. Not in the time that I was there anyway. So I was like, I didn't get to do anything social. And the first round, there was no messenger, so I couldn't even do messenger socially. So yes, a lot of things kind of went against my natural gameplay. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's completely fair. Like, I get where you and Sherry are coming from. I think things been slightly different. Hell, even if you would have gone to vote out Ariana that first round, I think the game could have potentially turned, in a much different way. But yeah, I mean, you were like, I'm fully open with most of my information here. Like, you were literally the first person we chose to be on this cast. Like, we were super excited for you to be on. There was no arguments. There was no nothing. The 3 of senior production got together. We're like, Mark's our first shoe-in, right? Yep. Boom, Mark's in. We're so happy. So it's crazy that you got out second, but I do get where you're coming from.
I feel like with the Ariana vote, you saw in my in the second episode confessional that I said I considered voting for Ariana, and I did consider voting for Ariana. But I really, really didn't want to, because like I said before, my game is social. And if Ariana had survived and Jenny had gone with us in that first vote, then we'd have been in a really strong position. Tasha would have been gone, and then probably the 4 of us probably would have then gone for one of the other 2, probably Louise, I would have guessed, which is a shame. I mean, Louise actually voted with me in the second episode, which surprised me. I found that out this week. you know, things would have swung the other way if Jenny had voted for Ariana as well. So, you know, those they're like little sliding doors moments, aren't they? That can change the entire outlook of the game. But what was I going to say? I'm not sure that if I'd have voted for Ariana, that my game would have changed that much, because I think that the other four had made that decision quickly. I think Jeffrey would have been the second boot, but I think I would have been on the outs for the third if we were to lose the third round.
I mean, possibly. That's the thing. It's really hard to say. You know, even Sherry and I did briefly, you know, address it, like in the reality of it. If I was playing that game, you would have not have been the person I would have gone for. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I love Jeffrey and all, but like clearly he does not have a good sense of what's really going on in the game. You know, so I think it would have been smarter to keep you in, but you have no clue. That branches off into like 30 different webs. Yeah. You know, if you would have potentially stayed and then won the next challenge, maybe you would have like hit it off with someone else. But I do agree with your statement, though. Had Ariana stayed in the game, you, Jenny, Mark, or you, Jeffrey, Ariana, and Jenny, I do think you would have ran that. You would have ran that, especially with the inexperience of Ariana and Jeff.
Yeah. I think that Jenny and I, we'll talk about Jenny in a moment. But Jenny and I would have had a lot of control there if we wanted it. But sadly, she did not want to work with me at all, it seems, which is such a shame, because I really warmed to Jenny a lot in the very first call that we had. I was like, she's so nice. And then, you know, the four of us were in a first breakout room together. You see that in the episode. And Ariana was clearly a bit nervous, and Jeffrey was clearly just Jeffrey, who's a massive character who just booms out of the screen. But I was thinking to myself, Jenny seems like someone I would really like to work with. She seems smart. She seems intelligent. She seems perceptive about things. And I was like, in my head, I was kind of like, this is who I would like, that I got from that group. I really warmed to the others as well, but I was like, she'd be someone I'd want to work with, and I hope that we can get something together. And then obviously she voted against us. So I was obviously disappointed at the time, and I knew it was her. It was very clear to me that it was her that had voted against. And it's interesting because, you know, when I challenged her on that, she said, I never said that I was going to vote that way. And I'm not sure whether she did say, I can't remember the exact wording. I'm sure you've got all the footage. But she definitely didn't give me the impression she definitely wasn't voting against Ariana either. I mean, and I know Ariana was in the room, so it was tricky, and we didn't have Messenger. And so it was hard to have that conversation. But yeah, it was interesting. And then with Jenny, I had no idea until I watched the episode this week that she was the one that really pushed for me to go in the second episode over Jeffrey as well. You know, it seemed to me from watching it that Ben wanted me to stay, that Jocelyn wanted me to stay. Louise definitely wanted me to stay because she voted Jeffrey out. And that it was more Jenny and Tasha. And I understand Tasha because I called Tasha, you know, we talked to Tribal. There was a little bit of heat there. But Jenny really wanted me out. And I'm like, I thought I really liked you. And she really wanted me out. So she took a lot of charge. And I was, you know, did you guys give her the Ember Award in the end?
Yes, we both did. Yeah.
I think it was totally fair. I mean, she took total control there, and she did really, really well. And I had no idea that she was my number one enemy when I wanted her to be my number one ally. So,
yeah. I mean, hell, we do see, and this is something we briefly talked about on the deep dive, like we do see that Tasha wanted Jeffrey gone too. She literally said it in the challenge. She was like, I want Jeffrey gone. Fuck you, Jeffrey. Like,
yeah, true. So Jenny was the only one that really was pushing for me, and then she got her way. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Every single person expressed that they wanted to keep you.
Wow.
Every single person. And obviously, I think had things been different, Jeffrey would have wanted you to stay too. He was.
Oh yeah, of course. I knew Jeffrey wanted me to stay. I wanted Jeffrey to stay. We obviously voted for each other, but it was just like a last ditch attempt. The only other thing I thought about doing, and I'm not 100% sure on the rules on this, it wouldn't have mattered for me because I got the most votes. But if Jeffrey had got the most votes and I had voted to depose Jocelyn, I don't know how that worked. How did that work?
So I promise you will at some point see it this season, but I will explain the rules of it. So the way that it works is that if you want to overthrow your elder, you are giving up your vote at the temple. So you have no vote. And what happens is that elder remains immune for the rest of that cycle, which the rest of the cycle ends when that person gets booted. So what happens is the first team time segment that you have before you go to the challenge, as a team, you all need to talk about who you want your next elder to be. And when you submit your confessional before the challenge, you send in your vote for a new elder, and the new elder gets announced at the challenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see it. But I was thinking to myself, what I thought was the case was I could potentially, if Jeffrey had got the most votes, I thought I could effectively send in, I'm not voting, I'm voting to depose the elder or something. I wasn't 100% sure on that rule. So I was thinking that was something I could do so that I would effectively be immune the next round if I had survived.
Yeah, fair enough. That did seem to be, which maybe we'll just have to go into more detail in the handbook, because we didn't originally put that in the handbook. We put that in the addendum because we wanted to keep that twist under lock and key.
Yeah.
But yeah, next season, I'm fairly certain, depending on how the reception goes this season, that will be just a brand new, here to stay sort of game mechanic. But yeah, we might have to go into more detail because some people were confused about it, but then I think people picked on after a couple rounds of how it worked. But that's fair.
Can I briefly talk about everyone else in the tribe team?
Absolutely. Thank you for the terminology.
I don't know where that's coming from.
I don't
know. Because they're really, really nice people. And I particularly like, obviously I had this really nice bond with Jeffrey and I loved Ariana as well. They were really, really nice. Jeffrey and I just seemed to follow each other around the whole time we were there and end up in the same room every room, which was really unhelpful. We should have been a bit more strategic with that. But Ben and Louise, I really, really liked both of them a lot. Jocelyn was lovely. But Jocelyn was interesting because she was kind of like, I think because she was the elder, she kept playing her cards quite close to her chest, certainly around me, because in that second round, she didn't really have anything to say because she knew it was between me and Jeffrey. Tasha, like, we had as far as I was concerned, we had a valid reason to vote for her compared to everyone else. Her internet in that first round was so bad. I mean, it was hilariously bad, as I saw. And I think she got quite defensive about that. And I'm like, well, there was a reason, whereas the others, there wasn't really a reason. We'd had no time to get to know anyone. So I wish she'd been a little bit less defensive about that, maybe, because, there was a valid reason that we went for it and it was nothing personal. But then it became almost a little bit more personal towards the end, I guess. But no hard feelings to Tasha. And she definitely cornered me in the, at the, what do we call it?
Temple?
At the temple, yeah. At the temple, she definitely cornered me. And that was quite funny to watch back. And on the other team, they just seem such a nice bunch of people as well. But we're not that crazy. What's Ben talking about? That we're a crazy team? I don't think we're that crazy.
So, I mean, only a portion of the footage really made it into the episode, because if we included like all of it, like the episode would have gone on even longer. And I want to try and keep these episodes at like a fair, length. But the really crazy thing was, so Jeffrey kicked it all off during the challenge when the results are being tallied and calling Bloody out, which then segued into right at the end of that segment. And you kind of get a snippet of it before that flashback sequence ends. It leads into the Control F, which is like, how you find something on like a document on the computer, which leads into Ben. Bloody calling Ben out for using Control F in the challenge, which you could use the handbook. There was no rules against it.
Yeah.
And then that segued into the Ariana boot. And then the Ariana boot, it was like Jeffrey and Tasha and I maybe a little bit of Jocelyn, but mainly like them just talking about we're divided, and it was Ariana. It was a 4-3 split. And like,
oh, wow.
That's wild. Like, you were giving the other team all the information about what happened.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
that was in part what it was, which later today, so it's Friday, you'll see probably a portion of that on the cutting floor. And then at this point, this podcast will come out on Saturday. So you'll see a little bit of on the cutting floor. So definitely make sure you watch that.
Yeah, that would be good. Did I say anything?
I'll have to go back and look at the footage.
Because I talked about in my intro video about wanting to be a quieter game, under the radar, all that kind of stuff. And I do think there were moments where I was trying to do that, and there's moments where I would have wanted to talk, but it was so hard. That very first time we went to vote, and I was in a room with Ariana, Jeffrey, and Jocelyn. Jocelyn can't vote. Jeffrey and Ariana are giving absolutely nothing. They're literally like, oh, I'm going to roll a dice. And Ariana's like, I don't know. So I had to say something. And that's when I said Tasha's name, because they were giving nothing. I was like, we can't roll a dice, guys.
Which I think that right there speaks to their inexperience in the situation. So like, you speaking up makes total sense, taking charge. As I said before, if it would have been the four of you, Jenny being the fourth, I think you would have ran that, because I think they would have followed you. So
I've already said this to you, but I was, and I know you couldn't do this because of production numbers, I think, but I felt like the room limit should have been 3 on that first round at least, because with only 7 people voting, that meant that a room had ultimate majority straight away. And I felt that was a bit unfair, because we couldn't do anything. Like, 4 of us were going to be in one room. And yeah, it took me too long to realize. I should have realized quicker, but it wasn't that long. It was maybe 2 minutes max. And
maybe it was like 5 or so, but Ben picked it up immediately. They got,
slow.
Yeah, like pretty much what you saw in that first episode, that was like more or less when the recording started for the room. Like, Ben picked it up immediately.
Oh yeah.
None of us, honestly, I'll be completely honest about this as well. Like, none of us even thought that was going to be a thing. Yeah. The fact that even came up, and it came up so insanely quick of, we're 4, let's keep each other safe,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was one thing I had to say about that first episode, because I think it meant the whole game was kind of changed on the basis of who was in the first room together because of one person not having a vote.
Yeah.
But it's just something you can't foresee. I'm also really, really disappointed that I put in so much effort into that. I was one of the few people that got my question right in the first challenge from our team. I'm also the second challenge. Sorry, I'm not buying this. It took me nearly the whole 3 minutes to do that video. It did not take me someone said to me, oh, you shouldn't have taken all your clothes off. I had a really nice shirt on that I wanted to for the whole, that I'd made an effort to choose that shirt for the episodes. And I took it off before the time started, so it didn't take me any more time at all. So it was nothing to do with that. I honestly don't know how it took so long to get through to you, because I was done and videoed and filmed in less than 30 seconds. So that annoys me as well, because I couldn't have done anything different.
Yeah. I mean, it like came down pretty quick between you and Josh. Like I don't know what the actual timestamps are. Hell, I could probably go back and find them. I'd have to dig through all the production chats, but I can't imagine it was too much of a difference, if I'm being completely honest.
Were they the actual last 2 videos in?
No, that's just
okay. That's why I was confused.
We have to add some tension. And I purposely put those 2 because that was the big swing points.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way it took to the last 10 seconds. I was like, no way. Okay, that's fine then.
Although I do believe, though, in the actual time of it all, you and Josh were like among one of the last 2 to actually get back on camera, which makes sense. You guys were wet, like.
Yeah. I went and dried off and put my shirt back on.
Yeah. So, you guys were like.
I didn't put my shirt back on because we saw me come back on camera still semi-naked. I was like, oh man, put it away.
Oh my gosh.
That was another reason. They were like, the team said they could have, they wanted to keep me because I literally no one would even volunteer to do the bath one from our team. I was like, no one's going to do it. No one is willing to do it. Okay, I'll do it then. I was always going to go above and beyond for the team if we needed to. So, and I mean, that's just more reason to not get rid of you, because we had, I don't know how many more rounds there are in teams, but like we were down to 6. We had one person who had never played any of these games. So one person who'd never played any of these games left. We had Tasha, whose internet we did not. Oh, was there 2? Oh, Jocelyn. Yeah. And we had Tasha, who her internet we were not 100% sure was going to stay good. I'm like, guys, you need someone that is confident and competent at challenges here. So I don't know what happens next, and I don't know the order of who goes next or whether or not we eventually do win a challenge. But I do think it was a mistake. And I think they could end up going into, do we call it merge? What do we call it?
You call it merge. I just usually refer to it as day 1 and day 2. Day 2 is the jury phase of the game. Okay. So from the jury phase, I imagine they're probably going to be in the minority, and that's not going to do anyone particularly good. So we'll see. But, that's how I feel. They maybe made a mistake. I don't know. All right. Well, I guess on that note, I get to find out. I don't know. I'm very happy that you're still enthusiastic, because I know some people are just like, it's a game I played, I'm done, or that was my boot, I'm done. So I'm happy that you're still enthusiastic and willing to continue on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was pissed, and I'm still pissed at the vote. But I'm doing it with a smile on my face. I was so prepared and I was so excited to play it. And I really wanted to get to day 2 at least. Yeah. So that I could be part of the end of it. But you know what, it is what it is. I'd love to come back. So there's always the future. I'll leave it at that. But I guess on that note, do you have any final thoughts before we can officially conclude? No, I really hope that Ben and Louise go really far. That's what I'm hoping. So we shall see. All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for coming on today. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And on that note, have a good day.